Don't overclock your 9850 X3D. What's up guys, I'm Mike. I'm an ultra competitive Warzone player, and I've spent years learning how to tune and optimize PCs so that I can have the ultimate competitive advantage. In today's video, we're gonna be talking about why you shouldn't overclock your 9850 X3D, and I'm gonna show you what will happen if you do. So every time I hear the world's fastest gaming CPU, I get really excited. As soon as it hits the market, it's like Christmas morning for me, and naturally I went out and bought it immediately. But the initial reviews made it clear that this wasn't a new CPU, it was more of a refresh or a KS variant in Intel terms. But my goal was pretty simple. I wanted to obviously overclock it for max performance, and overall I just wanted to give myself the best possibility of having the world's fastest Warzone PC. I figured I could apply the same tune that I did to the 9800 X3Ds that I've worked with to the 9850, which was a PBO boost of 200 megahertz, as well as a negative offset of between 20 and 40, depending on the bin. And the results with that on 9800s were fantastic. I saw super stable boost clocks of about 5425 in game. So I figured since the 9850 is a refresh version of that, I might be able to get 5825 in game with the 9850. Spoiler alert, I was wrong. So my CPU in particular has an SP score of 120. If you're not familiar with what SP score means, it's ASUS's way that they grade your CPU and predict the silicon quality. And from what I can tell online, 120 is a pretty top tier score, so this CPU should be pretty good overall. But you guys will have to let me know down below in the comments if you have one, what your SP score is. For the motherboard, we're pairing this with the X870E Dark Hero. We're pairing it with a 420mm AIO, as well as a 2x24 kit of memory, running at 6000 CL26 with a maxed out refresh interval. But before we get into talking about a overclocked 9850 versus a stock one, we first need to establish a benchmark. So I benchmarked my tuned 9950 X3D as well as my 285K so that we could have some numbers to compare it against. And after I collected that data, I started on the 9850, and that's where I started to get pretty excited. Overall, we saw an increase of about 8.2% in terms of FPS across all resolutions. We tested 5K, 4K, 1440p, and we tested 4 maps: Verdansk, Haven's Hollow, Rebirth Island, as well as Nuketown. There is a big outlier in the data though. If you look at the 4K Nuketown data, you'll see there was a 61% lead for the 9850 X3D in terms of 1% lows, and the 1% lows are about 116 on the 9950 and 187 on the 9850. I retested this, and it doesn't happen in every match, but I did want to leave the data in there as a testament to what could happen with a 9950 X3D. The reason is the 9950 X3D is a dual-CCD CPU, so that can have stutters if it has core parking issues or is running any sort of background tasks. Essentially, the 9950 X3D has 2 brains, CCDs, and one is the V-cache and one is a non-V-cache for multi-core workloads. So sometimes you'll get cross CCD latency that causes the CPU to pause and move data between the 2 brains, and that can lead to a decrease in performance. Whereas a 9850 X3D is a single CCD issue, so it doesn't suffer from those same issues. So the 9850 X3D by nature is inherently more reliable, and you'll see more consistent, higher performance values with it. It's the difference between a chip that is usually smooth and a chip that is always smooth. I've been using it for about a week now, and let me tell you, it has been just absolutely performing fantastic. In regards to the 9850 versus Intel, well, it's a bloodbath. Compared to the 285K, it's not even close. And I stopped testing after just a couple different resolutions in Verdansk, just because it seemed like a waste of time. And we saw a 40% difference in 1440p and a 20% difference in 5K. Now, before you Intel fanboys absolutely massacre me in the comments, just know the 285K is a fantastic CPU for productivity. It just isn't that great for gaming, at least not right now. And my channel specifically focuses on gaming performance and in specific Warzone. Not to say that you can't game on a 285K, that's not what I'm saying at all. It is still a good gaming experience, but in comparison to X3D, if you really want the top tier experience in terms of max FPS and most stable 1% lows, it's gonna be X3D all day long, and the 9850 X3D is in a class of its own. So with all those numbers in the books, I thought, well, that was a stock 9850 X3D. Surely a overclocked 9850 X3D would be even better, right? Well, I was wrong again. I did a tune, the same tune I did on the 9800. I put PBO on +200. I turned medium load boosted on, scaler to 2x, and put a -25 curve offset. And the results we got from that was actually decreased performance by about 4.5% on average. And it was remarkably consistent in terms of, we saw this across every single resolution and every single map that we tested. So in addition to that, 1% lows took an even bigger hit. We saw about a 7.4% decrease in 1% lows. And when you're playing fast-paced competitive shooters, 1% lows is definitely the most important FPS stat, because that's what happens when you're in those gunfights. You definitely don't want any stutters mid-gunfight. That's what's gonna cause you to lose those fights. So the reality of the situation is, for the 9850 X3D, stock definitely runs faster and more stable, and you can just apply a negative offset to it and just let it do its thing, and it's gonna run way more stable and smooth. But I know what you're probably thinking, because I was thinking the same thing too. How does faster clock speeds result in lower performance? And I had to look into this. It's actually something called clock stretching, which is essentially like the CPU pausing. So when the CPU realizes it doesn't have enough voltage to hit that, boost clock that you're asking it to, with PBO, it'll just pause for a second. And it does this so that it doesn't blue screen or crash the computer on you, it just pauses. So in your hardware info or in your monitoring software, you'll actually see that it's reporting a higher clock, but that higher clock isn't actually translating into better performance. Another way to think about this is, imagine you're a world-class sprinter. You've got a perfect stride, you're in tune, you're super efficient, and all of a sudden your running coach says, hey, I want you to run even faster, and then on top of that, I also want you to hold your breath. That's essentially what we were asking the 9850 X3D to do with that tune. We said, hey, we want you to run at 200 megahertz faster, and we're gonna give you less voltage to do it. Typically, you might be able to increase the voltage to hit those higher clock speeds, but this CPU, the 9850 in particular versus the 9800, already has more voltage at stock than the 9800. So 3D Vcache CPUs don't necessarily do well with higher voltage in general. So going even higher is not recommended for this CPU. The 9850 X3D comes from the factory, pre-tuned, pre-binned. Essentially, you're paying AMD an extra $30 to do all of that work for you, so you don't have to when you receive the CPU. So if you want the fastest Warzone experience, just grab the 9850 X3D, throw it in your motherboard, and just get to playing. I'm gonna be running this at a stock boost clock, but with a negative offset of about 25. And I've seen fantastic results with CPU package temps in the low 60s and super smooth gameplay with zero stutters. Thank you guys so much for watching. We are on a mission for 1,000 subs, so if you found this valuable or enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. And let me know down below in the comments, are you guys picking up a 9850? Do you think this is just a waste of silicon? Do you guys have a better SP score, or have you overclocked it and got any better results? I'm really curious if anybody has overclocked it and seen an improvement and what that tune might look like. I'm gonna keep playing around with the tune on this and see if maybe I can eke out a little bit more performance, but overall, I think I'm just gonna stick with that stock setup that I have going right now. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the next one.